The Manhattan skyline glittered like scattered diamonds against the velvet night, but Sebastian Cross barely noticed. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, a crystal tumbler of whiskey untouched in his hand, watching the city that had made him a billionaire before his 30th birthday. Somewhere down there, among the millions of lights, people were living real lives, having real relationships, falling in real love. Not the carefully orchestrated dance he'd just escaped from in the ballroom 40 floors below. "Mr. Cross?" His assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Miss Wellington is asking if you're returning to the gala." Victoria Wellington, supermodel, socialite, and according to the gossip columns, the perfect match for him. Beautiful, cultured, from old money. She knew which fork to use at dinner, how to make small talk with ambassadors, and, most importantly, she understood that their relationship was as much a business merger as a romantic entanglement. "Tell her I had an urgent call from Tokyo," Sebastian said, not turning from the window. "Give her my apologies." "Of course, sir." The silence that followed was deafening. At 34, Sebastian had everything society said he should want. Cross-tech industries dominated 3 sectors of the tech market. His net worth had just crossed $4 billion. He owned homes in 7 countries, a yacht he'd never sailed, and art he barely looked at. But standing there, watching a young couple on the street below share a hot dog from a vendor, laughing as mustard dripped onto the woman's shoes, Sebastian felt a hollow ache in his chest that no amount of money could fill. His phone buzzed. A text from his best friend since college. "Daniel Kim, you disappeared again. Victoria's not happy." Sebastian typed back, "When is she ever? That's cold, even for you. You okay?" Was he okay? Sebastian considered the question. By every metric that mattered in his world, he was more than okay. He was winning. So why did it feel like he was slowly suffocating? "I need a break," he found himself typing. "From all of it. Finally. Take that vacation I've been telling you about. Bora Bora, Monaco, anywhere but that office." But Sebastian wasn't thinking about beaches or casinos. He was thinking about that couple with the hot dog, about the way they looked at each other like they were the only 2 people in the world. When was the last time anyone had looked at him that way? When was the last time he'd been just Sebastian? Not Sebastian Cross, tech mogul and most eligible bachelor in New York. An idea began to form. Crazy and impractical and absolutely perfect. 2 weeks later, Sebastian stood outside a modest brownstone in Brooklyn, feeling more nervous than he had before any board meeting. He'd traded his Armani suits for jeans and a plain t-shirt, his Rolex for a simple watch from Target, his chauffeur-driven Bentley for a Metro card. The ad on Craigslist had been simple. Room for rent in Williamsburg. Young professionals preferred. Must be okay with cats. He'd responded as Sebastian Miller, his middle name. Common enough to be forgettable. Said he was a freelance web developer. New to the city. It was partially true. He had started as a developer, back before algorithms and venture capital had transformed him into someone he barely recognized. The door opened, and Sebastian's carefully rehearsed introduction died on his lips. The woman standing there was nothing like the polished, precisely beautiful women in his usual circle. Her auburn hair was piled in a messy bun, held in place with what looked like a pencil. Paint splattered her oversized NYU sweatshirt. Her feet were bare. Toenails painted a chipped purple. but it was her eyes that stopped him. Warm brown, sparkling with intelligence and humor, looking at him without calculation or agenda. "You must be Sebastian," she said, her voice carrying a slight southern drawl. "I'm Luna. Sorry about the—" She gestured at her paint-covered clothes. "I was in the middle of a project and lost track of time. Occupational hazard of working from home." "You're an artist? Graphic designer by day, painter by night and weekend. Come in, I'll show you around. Mind the cat. Oscar thinks he owns the place." As if on cue, an enormous orange tabby appeared, winding around Sebastian's legs. He bent to pet it, surprised when the cat immediately began purring. "Oh, wow," Luna said. "Oscar usually hates strangers. He must sense you're good people." If only she knew, Sebastian thought, following her into the apartment. The space was small but vibrant, every wall covered in art, some framed, some tacked up haphazardly. Plants crowded every surface, and the furniture was clearly second-hand but comfortable. It was chaos, but warm chaos, living chaos. "So, the room's back here," Luna was saying, leading him down a narrow hallway. "It's not huge, but it gets great light. The neighborhood's pretty safe, lots of great food options. There's a laundromat around the corner, and—" She stopped, laughing. "Sorry, I'm rambling. I always do when I'm nervous." "Why are you nervous?" She turned, leaning against the door frame. "Because I've interviewed 12 potential roommates this week, and they've all been terrible. One guy asked if I'd be open to alternative payment arrangements, if you know what I mean. Another wanted to know if I'd be willing to sign an NDA because he's kind of a big deal on social media. And don't get me started on the woman who asked if I could move out on weekends so she could Airbnb the whole place." Sebastian found himself genuinely laughing for the first time in months. "I promise I won't proposition you. I'm nobody important on social media. And I actually need a place to live, not a weekend scheme." "Well, that already puts you ahead of the pack." She pushed open the door to reveal a simple room with hardwood floors, a window overlooking a tree-lined street, and absolutely nothing else. "I know it's empty, but it's perfect," Sebastian said, and meant it. The room was probably smaller than his closet at the penthouse, but it had something his multi-million-dollar home didn't: potential. The potential to be anything, to start fresh. Luna studied him, those warm eyes curious. "You're not from New York, are you? What gave it away? You said perfect about an empty room in a fourth-floor walk-up with radiator heat and windows that stick." Native New Yorkers would have already started negotiating the rent down based on the stairs alone. "Guilty. I'm from Seattle, originally. Just moved here for a fresh start." Running from something or toward something? The question was casual, but it hit deeper than she could know. Both, maybe? Luna nodded, as if that made perfect sense. "Well, Sebastian from Seattle. When can you move in? Is tomorrow too soon?" Her smile lit up the room. "Tomorrow's perfect. Welcome home. Roommate." That night, Sebastian lay in his penthouse bedroom, staring at the ceiling. In 12 hours, he'd be moving into a Brooklyn brownstone with an artist who had paint in her hair and a cat named Oscar. His board of directors would have him committed if they knew. Victoria would be mortified. The financial press would have a field day. But for the first time in years, Sebastian fell asleep smiling. Moving in was surreal. Sebastian had never actually moved himself before, There had always been services, assistants, people to handle the mundane details of life. So showing up at Luna's brownstone with 2 suitcases and a laptop bag felt like stepping into another universe. "That's all your stuff?" Luna asked, helping him carry the cases upstairs. "I travel light," he said, which was true. He'd bought everything new, clothes from Target and Old Navy, a basic laptop that wasn't connected to any of his company systems, a pay-as-you-go phone. It was like creating an entirely new identity, which, he supposed, he was. "Well, make yourself at home. I put some sheets on the bed. They're clean. I promise. Bathroom's down the hall. We'll work out a shower schedule. Kitchen's communal. Just label your food if you don't want me to eat it by accident. I have a weakness for leftover Chinese." She was nervous again, talking fast, and Sebastian found it endearing. When was the last time someone had been genuinely nervous around him for reasons that had nothing to do with money or power? "Luna," he said, and she stopped mid-ramble about recycling schedules. "Thank you for taking a chance on a stranger." Her smile was soft, understanding. We're all strangers until we're not, right? The first week was an adjustment. Sebastian, who hadn't cooked for himself in over a decade, nearly burned down the kitchen trying to make pasta. Luna had rushed in at the smell of smoke, laughing as she rescued his pot. "Okay, new rule," she said, opening windows to clear the smoke. "Cooking lessons, for the safety of the brownstone." She taught him the basics, how to boil water without forgetting about it, how to tell when oil was hot enough, how to not confuse salt and sugar, a mistake that had ruined his first attempt at coffee. She was patient and funny, dancing around the small kitchen to whatever music was playing on her phone. "You really never learned to cook?" she asked one evening, watching him carefully chop vegetables for a stir-fry. "My family wasn't big on home cooking," he said, which was true. After his mother died when he was 10, there had been a succession of housekeepers and eventually personal chefs. His father had been too buried in work to care about family dinners. "That's sad," Luna said simply. "Food is love, you know? My grandmother used to say that. She'd spend all day Sunday making this enormous spread, and the whole family would come together. Cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone talking over each other, stealing bites before dinner was ready. It was chaos, but it was beautiful." "Sounds nice," Sebastian said, meaning it. His family dinners had been silent affairs, when they happened at all. "What was your family like?" Luna asked, then quickly added, "Sorry, you don't have to answer. I'm being nosy." "It's okay." Sebastian focused on the vegetables, choosing his words carefully. "My mom died when I was young. My dad worked a lot. He passed a few years ago. No siblings, so it was pretty quiet." Luna's hand touched his arm briefly, a gesture of comfort that sent unexpected warmth through him. "I'm sorry. That must have been lonely." "I managed," he said, then added more honestly. "But yeah, it was lonely sometimes." "Well," Luna said, bumping his shoulder with hers, "you've got a roommate now, and Oscar. We're not much of a family, but we're pretty good at making noise." As if to prove her point, Oscar chose that moment to knock a plant off the counter, sending dirt everywhere. Luna groaned, and Sebastian laughed, helping her clean up the mess. It was mundane and messy and absolutely perfect. Their routine developed naturally. Sebastian would leave early in the morning, ostensibly for his freelance work, but actually to a co-working space where he could handle the essential business matters he couldn't completely abandon. He'd return in the evening to find Luna working on her latest project. Music playing, Oscar supervising from his perch on the back of the couch. They'd cook together, or rather, Luna would cook while Sebastian assisted and tried not to burn anything. They'd eat at the small kitchen table, talking about everything and nothing. Luna would tell him about her design clients, the ridiculous requests they made, the projects that excited her. Sebastian would share carefully edited stories about his freelance work, the challenges of building websites, the clients who didn't know what they wanted. "You know what you need?" Luna said one night, pointing her fork at him. "A life outside of work. When's the last time you did something just for fun?" Sebastian thought about it. His fun usually involved exclusive clubs, charity galas that were more about networking than charity, vacations that were really just work in prettier locations. It's been a while. That's depressing.
Okay, this weekend, we're fixing that. There's this street fair in Bushwick, local artists, food trucks, live music.
You're coming with me. I am? You are. Consider it mandatory roommate bonding. Plus, I need someone to carry my purchases. I have no self-control at street fairs. That weekend, Sebastian found himself wandering through crowds of people, none of whom had any idea who he was. Luna dragged him from booth to booth, examining handmade jewelry, debating the merits of different hot sauce brands, dancing unself-consciously when a band started playing. "Try this," she said, shoving a paper plate at him. "Kimchi grilled cheese. It'll change your life." He took a bite, the flavors exploding on his tongue. "This is incredible. Right? See, this is what you've been missing, locked away with your computers. The world is full of amazing things. Sebastian Miller. You just have to be willing to get a little messy." She had a smudge of sauce on her cheek. Without thinking, he reached out to wipe it away. The moment his thumb touched her skin, everything seemed to stop. Luna's eyes widened, her lips parting slightly. The crowd, the music. Everything faded except for the warmth of her skin under his finger. "You had," he said quietly. "Thanks," she whispered. They stood frozen for a heartbeat. Then Luna stepped back, her cheeks flushed. "We should, check out the art vendors. I promised my friend Maya I'd stop by her booth." The moment passed, but something had shifted. Sebastian found himself hyper-aware of Luna after that, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating, the little humming sounds she made when she was happy, the fierce concentration on her face when she worked on her art. And if Luna stood a little closer to him as they navigated the crowds, if her hand brushed his more often than strictly necessary, well, neither of them mentioned it. 3 weeks into his new life, Sebastian got a reality check. He was at the co-working space when his phone, his real phone, exploded with messages. Daniel had been covering for him, but apparently, his absence was being noticed. "Where are you?" the first text read. "Victoria's convinced you're having a breakdown. The board is asking questions. Your CFO is about to send out a search party." Sebastian sighed, stepping outside to call him. "I'm fine. Daniel." "Fine? You disappeared. Your assistant thinks you're in Tokyo. Your CFO thinks you're in London. And I've run out of lies. What's going on?" "I'm taking a break. A real break." "Okay. But why the secrecy?" Why not just take a vacation like a normal billionaire? Sebastian watched a group of friends laughing over coffee at the cafe across the street. Because I don't want to be a billionaire right now. I want to be a normal person. Seb, you're not normal. You're worth $4 billion. You run a tech empire. You can't just pretend that doesn't exist. Watch me. This is insane. What triggered this? Was it Victoria, the Henderson acquisition? It was a hot dog, Sebastian said. What? Never mind. Look, I need this, okay? I need to remember who I am without all the noise. Give me a few more weeks. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Are you safe? Are you okay? I'm better than I've been in years. Fine. But you owe me. Do you know how exhausting it is covering for you? I've had to attend 3 charity galas in your place. I hate small talk. I'll make it up to you. You better. And Seb, be careful. Whatever you're doing, whoever you're finding yourself with, just be careful. After they hung up, Sebastian stood on the sidewalk, feeling the weight of his real life pressing against the bubble he'd created. How long could he keep this up? How long before his 2 worlds collided? The answer came sooner than he expected. It started innocently enough. Luna had been stressed about a big client presentation, working late into the night. Sebastian found her at 2 a.m., passed out at her desk, her face pillowed on her arms. Hey, he said softly, touching her shoulder. Luna, you'll hurt your neck sleeping like that. She stirred, blinking up at him blearily. Sebastian, what time is it? Late. Come on. Let's get you to bed. She let him help her up, leaning against him as he walked her to her room. The presentation, she mumbled. It's not ready. The client wants something innovative but also safe, which makes no sense. And I can't figure out how to... It'll be okay, Sebastian said, tucking her into bed. You're brilliant. You'll figure it out. You think I'm brilliant? She asked, already half asleep again. I think you're extraordinary, he said quietly, but she was already asleep. The next morning, Sebastian woke early and looked at her presentation. It was good, really good, but he could see what was missing. Without thinking, he made a few adjustments, drawing on years of experience with corporate presentations and market positioning. He left a note. Just some suggestions. You've got this. S. When Luna found him that evening, her eyes were shining. Sebastian, the presentation was a hit. The client loved it. Those suggestions you made, how did you know exactly what they wanted? Lucky guess, he said, uncomfortable with the deception. No, it was more than that. It was like you understood corporate psychology or something. Are you sure you're just a web developer? The question hung between them. This was his chance to tell her the truth, to explain everything. But looking at her, so happy and excited, Sebastian couldn't bring himself to shatter the illusion. I've worked with a lot of corporate clients, he said instead. You pick things up. Luna studied him for a moment, and he wondered if she could see through the half-truth. Then she smiled and threw her arms around him. Well, whatever your secret is, thank you. You saved me. Holding her, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, something fruity and unpretentious, Sebastian thought he might be the one who needed saving. As weeks turned into months, Sebastian fell into a rhythm that felt more real than anything in his previous life. He and Luna had developed dozens of small rituals. Sunday morning farmers markets, where Luna would charm free samples out of vendors and Sebastian would carry increasingly heavy bags of produce they'd turn into elaborate dinners. Wednesday night movies on their ancient couch, arguing about plot holes and character motivations while Oscar claimed the spot between them. Friday evening walks through different neighborhoods, Luna pointing out architectural details and street art while Sebastian told her stories about the people they passed, making up elaborate backstories that made her laugh. "Tell me about that one," she'd say, pointing to a severe-looking woman in a power suit. "Definitely a secret agent," Sebastian would reply with mock seriousness. "Probably Russians. See how she's checking her phone? Coded messages. And the coffee cup is clearly a communication device." "You're ridiculous," Luna would laugh, but she'd already be pointing to the next person, eager for another story. It was during one of these walks that everything began to change. They were in Soho, an area Sebastian usually avoided because of the higher chance of recognition. But Luna had wanted to visit a particular art supply store. As they walked past a gallery, Luna stopped suddenly. "Oh my God," she breathed, staring at the window display. "That's a Mikhail Volkov original." Sebastian looked at the painting, a stunning abstract piece in blues and grays that seemed to capture movement and stillness simultaneously. He knew it well. He'd actually bid on it at auction last year, but lost to an anonymous collector. "You know Volkov?" he asked. "Know him? He's only my favorite contemporary artist. I wrote my senior thesis on his use of color to convey emotion. God, to see one in person." She pressed her face closer to the glass like a kid at a candy store. "I bet it costs more than I'll make in a lifetime." "Do you want to go in? We could look around." Luna shook her head. "Places like that aren't for people like me. They'd take one look at my Target dress and secondhand boots and know I don't belong." "That's ridiculous. Art is for everyone." She gave him a sad smile. "That's sweet, Sebastian, but naive. There's the art world, and then there's the real world. People like me admire from a distance." The resignation in her voice bothered him more than he could express. He wanted to tell her that he could buy her every painting in that gallery, that money meant nothing compared to the joy it would bring her. But that would mean revealing everything. Later that night, Sebastian found Luna on the roof of their building, her secret escape spot she'd shown him a few weeks earlier. She had a sketch pad in her lap, working by the light of the city. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, settling beside her. "Just thinking. That painting today. It reminded me why I became an artist in the first place. Not a graphic designer, but an artist." She laughed, but it was hollow. "Silly, right? Why is that silly?" "Because artists are people who can afford to be artists. People with trust funds or wealthy spouses or the ability to live on nothing. People create beautiful things while the rest of us create banner ads for teeth-whitening products." "You create beautiful things," Sebastian said, thinking of the paintings that covered their apartment walls. "Your work is incredible. You're sweet, but you're biased. You haven't seen real art, the kind in galleries and museums." If only she knew, Sebastian thought. His penthouse contained millions of dollars in art, pieces by masters both old and contemporary. But none of them moved him the way Luna's painting of Oscar sleeping in a sunbeam did, or her abstract interpretation of the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset. "Maybe the problem isn't your art," he said carefully. "Maybe it's the system that decides what counts as real art." Luna turned to look at him, streetlights casting shadows across her face. "When did you become such a philosopher?" Must be all those documentaries you make me watch. She laughed, leaning against his shoulder. It was becoming their default position, this casual intimacy that felt anything but casual to Sebastian. You love those documentaries. Admit it. I love... He caught himself. They're growing on me. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights twinkle below. Sebastian thought about all the nights he'd spent in penthouses and exclusive clubs, surrounded by people, but utterly alone. None of those nights had felt as perfect as this moment, sitting on a dirty rooftop with a woman who thought he was just a struggling web developer. Sebastian? Luna's voice was soft. Can I ask you something? Always. Why don't you ever talk about anyone from back home? No friends? No exes? No family stories beyond your parents? It's like you appeared in New York fully formed. No history. His heart rate spiked. I told you. I came here for a fresh start. I know. But from what? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. But sometimes I feel like you're carrying something heavy. Like you're running from something that hurt you. She wasn't wrong. He was running from expectations. From a life that looked perfect but felt empty. From the man he'd become. We all have our secrets, he said finally. I suppose we do. She was quiet for a moment. For what it's worth, whoever hurt you, whatever you're running from, I'm glad it brought you here. Yeah? Yeah. Oscar would be devastated if you left. He's gotten used to those fancy treats you buy him. Just Oscar? She turned her face up to his, and they were so close he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. Not just Oscar, she whispered. The moment stretched between them, fragile and perfect. Sebastian knew he should pull back, knew that kissing her would complicate everything. But Luna's lips were parted, her eyes fluttering closed. And he was only human. The kiss was soft, tentative, a question more than a statement. Luna's hand came up to cup his cheek, and she sighed against his lips, a sound that shot straight to his heart. When they finally pulled apart, her eyes were bright. I've been wanting to do that for weeks, she admitted. Just weeks? He teased, trying to lighten the moment, even as his heart thundered in his chest. Okay, maybe since the day you almost burned down my kitchen. She bit her lip, suddenly uncertain. Is this okay? I mean, we're roommates, and if this makes things weird... He silenced her with another kiss, this one deeper, more certain. When they broke apart this time, they were both breathing hard. Not weird, he managed. Definitely not weird. Luna laughed, the sound bright in the night air. Good. Because I really like you, Sebastian Miller. You're different from anyone I've ever met. You're kind and funny, and you actually listen when I talk about art theory. You don't try to impress me or pretend to be someone you're not. You're just... you. Each word was like a knife to his conscience. She thought he was authentic, honest, real. And he was sitting there with a fake last name and a hidden fortune, pretending to be someone he wasn't. Or was he? These past weeks with Luna, he'd felt more like himself than he had in years. But which version was real? Sebastian Cross, the billionaire, or Sebastian Miller, the struggling developer who was falling in love with his roommate? Luna, he started, knowing he needed to tell her something, anything, Shh, she said, pressing a finger to his lips. No heavy conversations tonight. Tonight, let's just be us, whatever that means. Whoever we are. Tomorrow we'll still be there in the morning. She was right, but also wrong. Tomorrow would come, and with it, the weight of his deception. But for tonight, Sebastian let himself exist in this perfect bubble where he was just a man falling for an extraordinary woman who saw him, really saw him, even if she didn't know his whole truth. They stayed on the roof until the sun began to rise, talking and kissing and planning weekend trips they might take, movies they wanted to see, restaurants to try. Normal couple things that felt revolutionary to Sebastian. As dawn painted the sky pink and gold, Luna yawned against his shoulder. We should probably get some sleep, she said reluctantly. I have a client meeting at 10. Probably, he agreed, neither of them moving. Sebastian? This changes things, doesn't it? Yes, he said honestly. Is that okay? She tilted her face up to smile at him. More than okay. It's perfect. But perfection, Sebastian was learning, was fragile, and secrets, no matter how well-intentioned, had a way of surfacing at the worst possible moments. The bubble burst on a Thursday afternoon. Sebastian had taken Luna to the Museum of Modern Art. She'd been talking about wanting to go for weeks, but kept putting it off because of the admission price. He'd convinced her it was his treat, a celebration of her landing a major new client. They were standing in front of a Jackson Pollock, Luna excitedly explaining the artist's technique, when Sebastian heard a familiar voice that made his blood freeze. Sebastian? Sebastian Cross? He turned slowly to find Margaret Henderson, wife of one of his board members, bearing down on them like a designer-clad missile. There was no avoiding her, no pretending he hadn't heard. She was already reaching for him, air kissing his cheeks in that way that society women did. I thought that was you. Richard said you were traveling, but here you are at MoMA. And who's this? Her eagle eyes fixed on Luna with predatory interest. Luna looked between them, confusion clear on her face. I'm sorry. Did you say Cross? Oh dear. I haven't interrupted a business meeting. Have I? Margaret's laugh was like breaking glass. Though I must say, Sebastian, your taste in meeting venues has improved. Better than those stuffy conference rooms. Margaret, Sebastian said, his mind racing for an explanation, an excuse, anything. This isn't... Don't be modest. Richard tells me all about your acquisitions. Speaking of which, we missed you at the Pemberton Gala last week. Victoria was asking after you. Such a lovely girl. When are you going to make an honest woman of her? Luna had gone very still beside him. Victoria? Margaret, oblivious to the tension, plowed on. Oh, has he not mentioned her? They've been together for simply ages. Power couple of the year, according to Forbes. Though between you and me, she leaned in conspiratorially, I think she's more interested in the merger opportunities than romance. But then again, at your level, what's the difference? Stop. Luna's voice was quiet but firm. She turned to Sebastian, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Your name is Cross? Sebastian Cross? Luna, I can explain. Oh God. She pressed a hand to her mouth. You're that Sebastian Cross, the billionaire. I've seen your picture in... Oh, God. This is not what it looks like. No? Her voice was rising now, drawing stares from other museum goers. Then what is it? Because it looks like you've been lying to me for months. It looks like you've been playing some kind of game, pretending to be someone you're not. I never meant... To what? To lie? To make me feel like an idiot? To laugh at the poor girl who thought she was falling for a struggling web developer? I never laughed. Luna, please. But she was already backing away, tears streaming down her face. I need to go. I can't be here. She turned and practically ran toward the exit. Sebastian started after her, but Margaret caught his arm. Sebastian, what on earth is going on? Who was that girl? He yanked his arm free. The best thing that ever happened to me, he said, then ran after Luna. But she was already gone, lost in the crowd of tourists and art lovers. Sebastian stood on the museum steps, feeling his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. He'd known this moment would come, had dreaded it. But somehow he'd convinced himself he'd have more time. Time to find the right words, the right moment to explain everything. His phone, his real phone, buzzed with messages. Word traveled fast in his circles, within minutes. His inbox was full of questions, speculation, demands for explanations. But Sebastian ignored them all. There was only one person who mattered right now. He took a taxi back to the brownstone, hoping Luna would be there. But the apartment was empty except for Oscar, who meowed accusingly at him from the couch. Luna's door was closed, and when Sebastian knocked, there was no answer. Luna, please, let me explain. I know how this looks, but if you just let me tell you why... Go away. Her voice was muffled, thick with tears. I never meant to hurt you. Everything between us has been real. My feelings for you are real. Nothing about you is real! The door flew open, and Luna stood there, eyes red and puffy, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Your name isn't real. Your job isn't real. Your entire life has been a lie. Not my entire life. Not the parts that mattered. The parts that mattered? She laughed bitterly. You mean the parts where you slummed it in Brooklyn? Playing at being poor? Was this some kind of experiment? Research for how the other half lives? No. Luna. No. It was never like that. Then what was it like? Explain to me why a billionaire pretends to need a roommate. Explain to me why you lied every single day for months. Explain to me why I had to find out from some random woman in a museum that the man I'm falling in love with doesn't exist. The words hung between them, falling in love, even in his desperation. Sebastian's heart leaped at the admission. You're falling in love with me? Was past tense. Because you're not who I thought you were. She wiped at her face angrily. God, I'm such an idiot. I should have known. The way you never talked about your past, never had anyone visit. The way you knew things about business and art and wine that no normal web developer would know. I ignored it all because I wanted you to be real. I am real. This, us, it's the most real thing in my life. Stop. Just stop. She backed into her room. I need you to leave. Pack your things and go back to whatever penthouse you actually live in. I'll return your rent money. I don't care about the money. Of course you don't. Why would you? It's nothing to you. Just like I'm nothing to you. Just some girl you fooled for a few months. You're everything to me." Luna paused at that, searching his face. For a moment, Sebastian thought he might have reached her. Then her expression hardened. "If I meant anything to you, you would have told me the truth." You had 100 chances, 1,000 moments when you could have been honest. But you chose to lie. Every single day. That's not love, Sebastian. That's manipulation. She closed the door, and Sebastian heard the lock click. The sound was final, devastating. He stood in the hallway for a long time, hoping she might come out, might give him another chance to explain. But the door remained closed. Eventually, Oscar wound around his legs, meowing softly. Sebastian picked up the cat, burying his face in the orange fur. "I screwed up, buddy," he whispered. "I screwed up everything." He packed slowly, hoping Luna might emerge. But her door stayed closed, though he could hear her crying quietly inside. Each sob was like a physical blow. He'd done this. He'd taken something beautiful and destroyed it with his cowardice and deception. Before he left, he wrote a letter, pouring out everything he'd wanted to say. He explained about his mother's death, his father's coldness, the loneliness that money couldn't cure. He told her about the hot dog couple, about wanting to be seen as just Sebastian, not a bank account. He told her that every moment with her had been real, that she'd taught him how to live instead of just exist. He told her he loved her, not falling, not maybe, but completely and irrevocably loved her. He slipped the letter under her door and left the key on the kitchen counter. As he stood outside the brownstone one last time, looking up at the window of what had been his home, Sebastian felt emptier than he'd ever felt in his life. The penthouse was exactly as he'd left it, sterile, perfect, soulless. Sebastian stood in the middle of his living room, surrounded by millions of dollars of furniture and art, and felt like he couldn't breathe. Everything reminded him of Luna. The kitchen where no one cooked, unlike their tiny kitchen filled with laughter and experimentation. The walls covered in expensive art that said nothing, unlike Luna's vibrant paintings that told stories. The silence, so different from the comfortable chaos of Oscar knocking things over and Luna singing off-key in the shower. His phone rang constantly. Victoria, demanding explanations. Board members, concerned about his erratic behavior. Daniel, worried and confused. Sebastian ignored them all. What was there to say? That he'd found everything he'd ever wanted and destroyed it because he was too afraid to be honest? He tried to go back to his old life. Attended a board meeting where everyone talked about market projections while he thought about Luna's excitement over finding a $5 bill in an old jacket. Went to a charity gala where women in designer gowns flirted with him while he remembered Luna in her paint-stained sweatshirt, more beautiful than any of them. Had dinner with Victoria, who spent the entire meal planning their social calendar while he wondered if Luna was remembering to eat, or if she was too lost in her work to notice hunger. "You're different," Victoria said over dessert, studying him with calculating eyes. "This whole disappearing act, the museum incident Margaret told me about. What's going on?" "We need to talk," Sebastian said, realizing he couldn't do this anymore. Us, it's not working." Victoria's perfect eyebrows rose. "Not working? Sebastian, we're perfect together. Everyone says so. Everyone but us. I don't understand. Is this about that girl at the museum? Margaret said she seemed very..." ordinary. The dismissive way she said it, the casual cruelty, made Sebastian's decision easier. She's extraordinary, and I'm in love with her. Victoria laughed, a cold sound. You're in love with some nobody from Brooklyn? Don't be ridiculous. Men like you don't marry women like that. You have a position to maintain, a reputation. I don't care about any of that. You will. When the novelty wears off and you realize she can't hold a conversation at a diplomatic dinner or understand the complexities of your world. When you see her next to women of your actual caliber. Stop. Sebastian stood. We're done. Victoria, I should have ended this months ago. She stared at him in shock. You're serious? You're actually throwing away everything we've built for someone who sees me as a person, not a merger opportunity? Goodbye, Victoria. He left her sputtering in the restaurant, feeling freer than he had in years. But freedom meant nothing without Luna. Sebastian tried to reach her, called her phone, disconnected, went to the brownstone. Her roommate ad was back up, and a strange man answered the door. Visited the coffee shop where she sometimes worked on her laptop. The barista said she hadn't been in weeks. Even went to her friend Maya's gallery, but Maya just glared at him and said Luna didn't want to be found. You really hurt her, Maya said, arms crossed. I've never seen her like this. She trusted you, and you made her feel like a fool. I know. I want to fix it. Some things can't be fixed with money, Mr. Cross. I'm not trying to fix it with money. I just want to talk to her, to apologize properly, to tell her, what? That you love her? That it was all real? She told me everything. How you lived this whole fake life, made her believe you were someone else. Do you have any idea how that feels? To realize the person you're falling for doesn't exist. But I do exist. The person she knew, that was the real me. More real than I've ever been. Maya studied him for a long moment. Maybe. But you're going to have to do a lot better than showing up places looking sad if you want her to believe that. Weeks passed. Sebastian threw himself into work, but nothing held meaning anymore. He'd sit in board meetings thinking about Sunday farmers markets. He'd come home to his empty penthouse and miss Oscar's judgmental meows. He'd lie in his king-sized bed and remember falling asleep on the couch with Luna, her head on his shoulder, some terrible movie playing in the background. Daniel finally cornered him, showing up at the penthouse with Chinese takeout and a determined expression. Okay? Talk. What happened? Who was she? So Sebastian told him everything. About the brownstone, about Luna, about the life he'd built, and the way it had all come crashing down. Daniel listened without interrupting, then whistled low. You really fell for her. Completely. And she has no idea you're not actually a complete ass? That you genuinely care? How can she? I lied to her for months. She thinks it was all a game. Then show her it wasn't. Grand gestures. My friend, you can't just give up. She won't see me, won't talk to me. I don't even know where she is. You're Sebastian Cross. You have resources. Use them, not to stalk her or force contact, but to show her who you really are, what you really care about. Sebastian considered this. He'd been so focused on trying to explain himself, he hadn't thought about showing her. Actions, not words. Wasn't that what Luna had always valued? An idea began to form. It started small. Anonymous donations to the art programs Luna had mentioned loving as a kid, funding for the free clinic where she volunteered, a scholarship program for aspiring artists from working-class backgrounds. Each donation made in Luna Bray, he'd finally learned her last name, though she'd never know the source. But that wasn't enough. Sebastian wanted to do something that would show Luna he'd heard her, understood her, valued what she valued. He remembered their conversation about the gallery, about how art wasn't for people like her. Even the resignation in her voice still bothered him. So Sebastian did something unprecedented. He created a gallery. Not another exclusive space for the wealthy, but a community gallery in Brooklyn. Free admission. Local artists featured alongside established names. Art classes for kids who couldn't afford them. Studio space for emerging artists at below-market rent. He named it the Sunbeam Gallery, after Luna's painting of Oscar that still haunted his dreams. The opening was on a Saturday. Sebastian had made sure Luna's friend Maya had a featured wall. She'd finally agreed to participate after he'd convinced her his intentions were genuine. He didn't attend himself, knowing his presence would create the wrong kind of attention. Instead, he watched from across the street as families streamed in. Kids running excitedly between installations. Local artists seeing their work professionally displayed for the first time. Then, he saw her. Luna stood outside the gallery, reading the mission statement etched into the window. Her hair was shorter, and she looked thinner, but she was still the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. She was with friends, and they were encouraging her to go in. Sebastian held his breath as she entered. He'd made sure her work was displayed. He'd kept the paintings she'd left behind, unable to let go of these pieces of her. Would she recognize the gesture? Would she understand what he was trying to say? Through the window, he watched her stop in front of her own paintings, saw her hand fly to her mouth. Maya appeared beside her, and he could see them talking animatedly. Luna was shaking her head, looking around the gallery with wide eyes. She knew. Somehow, she knew. Luna burst out of the gallery, looking up and down the street. Sebastian stepped out from his hiding spot, their eyes meeting across the busy Brooklyn street. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then Luna was running, dodging cars and pedestrians, and Sebastian met her halfway. "You built a gallery," she said breathlessly. "You said art wasn't for people like you." I disagreed. "Sebastian, I know I can't fix what I did. I know I hurt you in a way that money can't make better. But I wanted you to know that I heard you. Every word, every dream, every frustration. I heard it all, and it mattered. The donations, the clinic funding, the scholarships, that was all you." He nodded. "I wanted to use my money for something that mattered. You taught me that. You taught me a lot of things." Luna was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "I read your letter 100 times. I wanted to forgive you, but I was so angry, so hurt. You had every right to be. I missed you," she admitted. "I missed you so much it physically hurt. I kept turning to tell you something and you weren't there. Oscar stopped eating for a week. The apartment felt empty. My life felt empty." "Mine too. Luna, I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I broke your trust in the worst way. But if there's any part of you that could forgive me, that could let me try to earn your trust back." She silenced him with a kiss, right there in the middle of the street. It was desperate and tearful and perfect, tasting of forgiveness and second chances. "I'm still angry," she said when they pulled apart. "And it's going to take time to trust you again. Real trust, not the naive faith I had before. I understand. And no more lies. Ever. About anything. I need to know all of you. The billionaire. The boy who lost his mother. The man who burns pasta. All of it. All of it. He agreed. No more hiding. And I'm not moving into your penthouse. I like my apartment. Sebastian laughed. The first real laugh he'd had in weeks. Then I guess I'll need to find a roommate ad again. Don't joke. I'm serious. If we're doing this, we're doing it as equals. I won't be some kept woman in your fancy world. I don't want you to be. I fell in love with Luna the artist, the woman who teaches cooking to helpless roommates and dances at street fairs and fights with vendors over flower prices. I don't want that to change. She studied his face, and he let her see everything, the fear, the hope, the absolute devotion he felt for her. Okay, she said finally, but we're taking it slow, starting over. You can't just apologize your way back to where we were. I know. Can I start with buying you a coffee? I know a place with a great barista. Luna smiled through her tears. You're still not funny. You love it. I love you, she corrected. Despite my better judgment, I love you too. Have since the first time you saved my pasta from complete destruction. They walked toward the coffee shop, and Sebastian felt like he could breathe again. It wouldn't be easy. Trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. But Luna's hand was in his, and she was telling him about a commission she'd gotten, and Oscar would probably forgive him eventually with enough treats. So, Luna said as they waited for their coffee, tell me about Sebastian Cross, the real one. So he did. He told her about the empire he'd built, the loneliness that came with it, the way money solved problems but created others. He told her about board meetings and acquisitions and the strange bubble of extreme wealth. He was honest about Victoria, about the expectations of his world, about the challenges they'd face as a couple. Your friends won't understand, he warned. The press will be brutal. People will say you're after my money. Let them, Luna said firmly. I know the truth. You know the truth. That's all that matters. It won't be easy. Nothing worth having ever is. She squeezed his hand. But I have conditions. Anything. We keep the brownstone apartment. I need a space that's just mine, where I can be myself without worrying about all of that. Done. I keep working. I won't be a trophy girlfriend who lunches and shops. I wouldn't want you to be. And Oscar gets to visit the penthouse. He deserves to see how the other half lives too. Sebastian laughed. Oscar can have his own room if he wants. See? That's the kind of ridiculous rich person thing I'm talking about. No cat rooms. No gold-plated litter boxes. We stay normal. Or as normal as possible when you're dating someone who owns a yacht. 3 yachts? He corrected, then held up his hands at her look. Kidding, sort of. We'll figure it out. Luna. Together. Together. She agreed. As they left the coffee shop, Luna stopped suddenly. Wait. You really have 3 yachts? I might have gotten carried away in my early 20s. Sebastian, I'll sell 2 of them? You'll sell 2 of them and donate the money to ocean conservation. Deal. Luna shook her head, but she was smiling. What am I getting myself into? An adventure? Sebastian suggested. A really complicated, sometimes ridiculous, but ultimately wonderful adventure? With yachts. Apparently with 1 yacht, and a cat who thinks he's royalty, and a girlfriend who keeps me grounded, and a boyfriend who builds galleries to apologize. Too much? No, Luna said softly. It was perfect. You're perfect, even when you're imperfect. They walked through Brooklyn as the sun set, talking about everything and nothing, about how to merge their worlds without losing themselves, about boundaries and compromises and the strange reality of love across economic divides. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing about their situation was simple. But walking beside Luna, listening to her laugh at his terrible jokes, Sebastian knew it would be worth it. Because love, real love, wasn't about perfect circumstances or convenient truths. It was about choosing each other, again and again, through all the complications life could offer. It was about seeing past the surface to the person underneath, whether that surface was a struggling artist or a billionaire CEO. "Hey," Luna said as they reached the brownstone. "I just realized something." "What's that?" "I finally got to see that Volkov painting up close. You know, the one at the gallery that started all this?" Sebastian's heart skipped. He'd bought that painting the day after the museum disaster, unable to stop thinking about Luna's face pressed against the glass. It was hanging in the community gallery now, available for everyone to see. And it was even more beautiful than I imagined. But you know what? What? She stopped on the steps, turning to face him. "I have something better. I have someone who understood why it mattered to me, who remembered a conversation from weeks ago and made sure I could see it whenever I wanted. That's worth more than any painting. Luna, I mean it. You could have tried to buy my forgiveness with expensive gifts or lavish gestures. Instead, you gave me something priceless. You showed me that you truly listened when we were together, that what mattered to me mattered to you. Everything about you matters to me." "I know," she said simply. "That's why we're going to make this work." They climbed the stairs together, and Sebastian felt like he was coming home. Not to the brownstone, though he'd missed its cramped warmth, but to Luna, to the life they'd built and would rebuild, to the chance to be both Sebastian Cross and Sebastian Miller, to be wholly himself with someone who saw all of him and chose to love him anyway. At the door, Luna paused. "Oh, I should warn you. I got a new roommate." Sebastian's stomach dropped. "Oh, yeah. She's about 22 pounds, orange, and extremely judgmental. Turns out Oscar refused to accept a replacement for you." "He's been sleeping on your pillow and giving me accusatory looks." Relief flooded through him. "So I'm forgiven by the cat?" "The cat's forgiveness you'll have to earn with extensive treats and groveling, but he's willing to consider it." "And his owner?" Luna pretended to consider. "She's willing to begin negotiations. Terms to be determined. Groveling definitely required." "I'm excellent at groveling." "We'll see about that." She opened the door, and Oscar immediately appeared, meowing indignantly. Sebastian bent to pet him, and the cat, miracle of miracles, began to purr. "Traitor," Luna muttered to the cat. "You're supposed to make him work for it." "He knows I'm sorry," Sebastian said, scooping Oscar up. "Don't you, buddy?" Oscar meowed and bumped his head against Sebastian's chin, and Luna shook her head. "Men, you all stick together." But she was smiling, and when Sebastian reached for her hand, she interlaced their fingers without hesitation. They stood in the doorway of the apartment where it all began, where Sebastian Miller had learned to cook badly and love deeply, where he'd found himself by pretending to be someone else. "Welcome home," Luna said softly. And it was home. Not because of the building or the borough or the rent he'd paid for a room he didn't need, but because home, Sebastian had learned, wasn't a place at all. It was a person, and he was finally, truly, honestly home. To be continued.